methods to transfer your template onto your painting surface. In today's video, I'm going to take you through each one in detail, and I'll also give you some pros and cons of each. So it'll help you to determine what one will work best for you and how you can actually get started by doing your painting. So let's jump into it. So I've got my A4 here. This is just simple copy paper. I wouldn't paint on this. It's very thin. It would be awful to paint on. But if you want to use coloured pencils or acrylic markers, that sort of thing, this would be a great way to just get the template on quickly and then go from there. The next way to do it would be to use a thicker card. This method is great for people that just want to practice it before they paint on their canvas or before they transfer it onto a larger canvas. I mean, a lot of artists like to practice on a smaller piece anyway, or they do a smaller version of their artwork. Completely up to you. I love to just quickly print it out and then paint it straight onto the card. I've got some examples here. So as you can see, I just print my design out and paint it straight on. But the one thing you need to realize, obviously, with acrylic paint is it will warp your paper. You can see here, it's not going to sit completely flat. So it's just something you need to consider. I mean, there is a way around it. You could always glue your piece of paper onto a thicker box card like this, and then that way it would sit nice and flat. And then you could hang it or stand it up against a wall or a shelf or that sort of thing. But it is totally up to you. I mean, I don't paint artworks to keep on paper. I always like to paint them on canvas personally. It's just a nicer gift and it's just a nicer surface to paint on if you want to keep it forever. But again, this is great for a quick transfer to see if you're comfortable with it or to just practice it. And if you're uncomfortable with certain aspects of your artwork or if you want to practice some certain elements, this is a great way to do it. So you don't have to fear ruining your larger transfer or the one you're doing on canvas first. You've practiced it on paper. If you are new, it's a great way to just start. So I would recommend it anyway. Third is by using a canvas paper. So this you can actually buy from art stores or office shops. This is just a canvas pad, and it's actually pieces of canvas that you can run through your printer. Again, I have an A3 size because I can print A3 at home, which is great. This is another surface I like to practice my artworks on. It is a nicer surface to paint on than the paper, but I don't generally use this until I'm absolutely sure that I want to keep the design. I do save my templates and my practices for my paper, but this is also really good. I've got an example here. So as you can see, there's no warping. It's just like a canvas, like an unframed canvas that I've painted on. Another benefit of painting it on a canvas paper or a piece of paper is that you can put it directly into a frame. Like I've got this old IKEA one here. So obviously this wouldn't fit a canvas in the sides here. So you have to use something thinner like the canvas paper or the cardboard. I do like to stick artworks in frames. I mean, obviously artwork always looks better in frames. You can get canvas frames, but again, that's more expensive. So if you're giving it as a gift or you want to have it for yourself in your house, then using the canvas paper and then putting it straight into the frame is a great way to make it look really spectacular. I mean, artworks always look better in frames. So just some things to consider. I mean, I love using this method. I think it's great to just do it really quickly, practice. You can print it again and again and keep painting as many times as you like. The beauty of this is that you have your templates to print as many times as you like. So it's totally up to you. But obviously this is the first method, so I'm going to jump in and show you the next. The second method I'm going to take you through is to use light or a window and trace your template through the canvas. So I have just printed this in A3 because I can do that size, and I've matched it to my A3 canvas here. And then what you're going to do is turn your canvas over, and then you're going to place your template on the back. And then you just need to fold your sides over. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, it's just really so it fits inside your timber frame. And then you can center it, depending on the artwork, you might need to move it one way or another. Just keep in mind, because you have folded your template over, you're going to miss whatever is on the edge here. So you might have to continue that drawing, or, you know, just miss it, or it depends on what the template is. And then you just need to turn it over. So as you can see here, I have my template in the back of my canvas. Try to tuck it in to the edges here to try and hold it flat. And now at the front of the canvas, with the light shining through my window, you can see all of the lines. So now all you need to do is take a pencil and you just need to trace your lines using the light behind you. Now this is a great way, obviously, if you can print your template in an A3 or an A4 size, depending on your canvas. And as well, you can do it with the larger prints, but it can be a little fiddly. I mean, the paper doesn't really like to stick in the back of the canvas very well. So you'll find you might have to just, you know, put some pressure in the back just to push it through so you can actually see all of your lines properly, like so. And then you just trace. So here you go, you can see that I've traced my entire template onto my canvas. This is a pretty quick and easy method, obviously, as you've seen. It works well, especially if you don't have any carbon transfer paper. Obviously you will miss the edge of your canvas because you won't be able to trace it through the timber. You will have to extend the design yourself. Generally won't be too much of an issue, as most of the designs are centered towards the middle of the canvas, and it really isn't that much of a gap that you'll have to make up. You can also obviously use the larger templates that you get in your package. So you can print the A3, the A2 and the A1. You just need to put the template together and you just do it the same way. Just put the whole piece at the back of the canvas and you just trace. I generally favor the carbon paper method, which I'll show you next, but if you don't have any carbon paper, this is a great alternative and I think it works pretty well. So be sure to give it a go and then you can start painting. So the next method I'm going to show you is just printing your template and then using the carbon paper or tracing paper to transfer your design onto the canvas. For this example, I have printed the A2 version of this design and it's actually made up of 4 pieces of A4. You actually receive 3 different sizes in the A4 format to be able to print, and that's the A3, the A2, which is this one, and then you actually get an A1 size, which is made up of 9 A4 pages. But for this example, I'm going to use the A2 because that's close to the size of my canvas I have. So once your template is printed, you will need to stick it together to make your one solid A2 piece. And the way we're going to do that is just by trimming certain edges of the pages so that they line up perfectly with the design of the template. So for this one, I'm actually going to take my top 2 pages here. So I've got my 1 and my 2. I'm going to place one on top of the other and line them up perfectly. And I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line the ruler up with both of these lines on the end here. And then I'm going to take my Stanley knife. You can use scissors and draw the line first if you don't have a Stanley knife, but I always like to cut it because it's just easier. And then carefully, minding your fingers, just cut off that bottom stripe. Now when I put these back together, you'll see that when you meet this edge to the crop marks on this bottom page, the design will meet perfectly with this page. So before we can stick it together, we also need to do the same for the middle. So I'm going to put these 2 aside and I'm going to take these 2 pieces. Again, I'm going to place one on top of the other, and just keep in mind that obviously this page is a bit shorter because that's what we trimmed, but that's fine. We're just going to grab our ruler again, line it up with our crop marks and trim that edge. So we've trimmed both of them at once, and then all we need to do is put it together like a puzzle. So that one goes, these 2 go together You can use these crop marks here that are still on this page to line that up. And I'm going to use this one, place it on top of number 3, lining that up perfectly, like so. And then I'm just going to place my last one. So obviously you've got this page that sits perfectly on top of these pages that haven't been cut. Again, line it up with your crop mark on the edge and on the top here. And as you can see, that is our full-size A2 template. You can use your glue stick and just glue the pages together, but I'm going to use tape because it's just a little quicker. Perfect. So now we've got our full A2 page. So now we move to the next step, which is tracing. My canvas here, and it's close to the size of my template. As you can see, it's a little bit shorter, but that's fine. So you just need to work out the placement of your template. It might be wider, you know, it depends on what sort of canvas you have, but I want my bottom to be exactly where it's supposed to be. So I'm using my crop marks down here that I know are the edge. And then the top here, I'm actually going to trim. I'm just going to use my fingers to create a crease at the top of the page here. So then I can bring this down here onto my cutting mat and trim this top off. Now my template sits perfectly to the edge of the canvas, which is what I needed to do, because I'm going to use my painter's tape and I'm going to stick the template to the top of the canvas. Now this step is optional, but I just like to do this for certain templates. So then that way, if you need to retrace a certain element, or if you have painted over something and you need to know where it goes. But it's a good idea to do for certain artworks. I mean, as I paint this, I know I'm going to need to retrace this. So if there are elements on your template that you know you will need to retrace, I would recommend attaching your template to your canvas so you can easily turn it back over and then retrace what you need to if you've painted over certain lines and things. I can just flip it over and there's my canvas. So I'm going to grab my 4 pieces of carbon paper here. So you can see there's a dark side and a light side. You always want to make sure your paper is lying dark side down. So you can get this in A3 size as well, but I only have the A4 for now. So I'm just going to lie these down. You don't want them to overlap. You want them to be sitting completely separate of each other. And then you just need to flip your template over the top. Now we're ready to trace our design onto our canvas. So I'm going to use just a pink ink pen, but I just like to use something that's a different color so I know exactly what lines I've traced and which ones I haven't. I'm going to start down this bottom corner here, and I'm just going to do this line. And before you start tracing the entire thing, you just want to make sure that it's working. So you can see that that line has transferred, so we know we're doing it correctly. And then you just continue. So you just trace every line onto your canvas. You can take it slow. You might need to be a little bit slower and more careful, but this one lends itself to being a little bit less perfect. So don't worry too much about staying directly on the lines. Ready to start painting. I'm really excited to do this one. It's super easy to do. Like I said, this is generally my go-to method. I really love having the carbon paper on hand, and it's just very efficient. You can get this paper in rolls, but it is more expensive. It's nice and quick, really easy, and because I can print the templates in any size, It just makes it a lot easier than having to try and hold a large template up against a window behind a canvas, because this would be a little bit trickier. But also I like to be able to work flat on a desk as I trace. So that's just a preference of mine. But either way, give it a go and we'll move on to the next method. So I've got my template here. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my middle. So as you can see here, my template has a cross, and that is the middle center point. So then that way you know exactly where to start the template, because you want to keep it centered to your canvas. So first thing I'm going to do is find my middle. So this is 500, so obviously 250. So I'm just going to mark my 250. And I'm not using a lot of pressure because I don't want my grid lines to be too harsh, because then it just makes it harder to paint over the lines. So you want to try and keep them reasonably light. Next, I'm going to find my height. So now that I've got my cross here, you can see that I've created this box here, and then comparing it to the box here, it isn't as long. So obviously it's not as elongated. So that tells me that this canvas isn't as high as the template. And I want to be able to keep the height. So to do that, I'm going to actually use the horizontal grid lines. If I was to use the verticals, my grid would cut short and I'd probably lose 2 gridded rows of my template. And I don't want to do that because it has so much detail on the top and the bottom. So I want to be able to keep that. So I know that my canvas is 600, and then you need to count your horizontals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All you need to do, you just need to do this once. So you just need to measure the height of your painting surface. So mine is 600. And obviously if your canvas is 1.5 meters, or even if you're doing a wall, it's the same thing. You just need to take that measurement and divide it by 13, because that's the 13 lines that we need to replicate onto our painting surface. So I know that that measurement is 46. So from this middle point, I'm going to measure out marks of 46 all the way along this edge. Going to double check. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Perfect. So now I know that these lines will be exactly replicated onto my canvas. So I just need to line them up. Again, I'm not going to use too much pressure. And so now I've got all my lines on my canvas, and now I just need to do the same for the verticals. So you do not need to divide the top by anything. You've already got your measurement, which you've used on the horizontal. So it's again 46. So I need to just measure out my 46 at the top and the bottom, and then draw my lines. So as you can see, all my little boxes are perfectly square, which is what you want on your grid. So just remember, just divide the one side. So now also you can see that I have more grids. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've actually got 11 versus the 9. And like I said, it is totally fine. You just need to keep that in mind. So some designs might lend itself to being a bit more friendly to being extended. Like this one doesn't really matter so much, as she doesn't really extend past the edge of the template, but it's just something to consider when you do your grid. So next, I'm just going to mark my center. My center is where I'm going to start to draw my design. I'll start with this square here, and this square will be obviously this square, because this is the center point. Here's my center point. Of course, this takes mostly guesswork, but the grid helps you to kind of guide where your lines need to be. If you do print your grid, you can also mark some extra halfway points or some extra little markers to help you figure out where your lines or your design needs to be. But I generally just freehand it. A lot of these designs lend themselves to being a little bit more freehand anyway, so it won't really matter too much. And then you're just going to go square by square and start drawing all of your lines. As you can see, my template is now on my canvas. It's proportionate to the height, and obviously if we look at the template, you can see that I do have this extra space here where my design is a little bit more spread out, but that's what I prefer because I wanted to keep the height. So just remember that before you do your grid, that if your canvas is shorter, you want to make sure that you keep the height versus the width and vice versa. Also, if you are struggling with certain elements of your design, you can always add an extra couple of grid lines and just replicate it on your template. That way you'll be able to get the positions of your designs. I mean, this is a more challenging template to draw freehand versus some of the others, but I did want to show you on a more difficult one so you can really grasp the method itself. And also, this is obviously the only way you can do it if you don't have a printer at home and can print your template. And it is a really great challenge to be able to say you drew it from the beginning all the way through to painting the finish. Now that you know how to complete this option, you will be able to give it a go yourselves. So now you know all 4 options of how to transfer your template onto your painting surface. So be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of those future step-by-step tutorials. Until then, see ya!